What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale, joined by my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are not covering another NBA 23-24 team look ahead today. We are trying to hold ourselves accountable by going back through our 2022 offseason grades for the Eastern Conference, and we are going to regrade them now. Hopefully this will be very quickly paced. And it'll be a nice little break. We can talk about sort of the entire league at large rather than doing 70 minutes on a singular team. Very quickly, though, please remember, especially because I'm not reminding people in the intros as we do these team look aheads, rate, review, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, subscribe, like every video, turn on notifications, share them. Subscribe to us wherever you get your audio podcast, Spotify, Apple. Ratings and reviews go a long way towards helping us on both platforms and climbing us up the charts. I cannot reiterate enough, too. I know a lot of people have said they will download every episode, but they won't listen to the look-aheads if it's not their team. Listen to them. Share them if you're not going to listen to them. They are a lot of work for both Grant and myself, even though he will demur there. So we want to continue to do them. I've talked about the realities of how bad the numbers normally are on them, but Grant and I do find them valuable for ourselves, which is why we're able to keep doing them. I want them to be valuable for you. I know a lot of you enjoy them, appreciate the hardcores who listen to every single one, but share them, retweet the promos on them, or if you know you have a Hornets fan friend, just anything to help get those out there. Look, they're a bear, and Dunked On does them, and they do a great job of them. They're behind a paywall, though. As far as I know, we're the only podcast that is going this in-depth on every team that is not behind a paywall. And so help us get them out there. And then follow us on all the socials at HardwoodKnocks on Twitter and TikTok, at Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. Follow Grant on Twitter at GT_Hughes. Follow me on Twitter at Dan Favale, Favale. Buy our merch. The link to that's in the podcast and YouTube description if you're looking to support the show. And I believe that you can also support the show just by joining Discord. Grant and I are not as active in there right now. I am reading, I am responding when I can, but the priority is getting these team look aheads out at the moment. And we have a great community that does a good job carrying the conversation on without us. That is actually the end. And so now I turn it over to Grant. How the heck are you doing?
So ready to be wrong, Dan. So ready to look back at how foolish we were, or prescient, depending. We haven't really gone ahead and looked at these. So some of this there will be some moments where the questions we will ask each other is, what on earth were we thinking? So I'm definitely excited for accountability and mea culpas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a humbling experience, I would imagine, because we've never done, we're pretty good at acknowledging when we're wrong, but this is the first time we're actually going through last year's grades. And we've already done the teams that we missed on with their win totals and whatnot. So that was some accountability, but this is more like, oh, we said that about, I'm very worried about when we get to the Knicks. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever thought that maybe we're a little too willing to admit how little we know? Do you think that maybe hurts the brand?
Is that why we haven't popped?
Well, I feel like the alternative that seems to be very successful, whether it's politics or sports talk, is to dig in and say like, no, I was dead right. Or just ignore facts and like that kind of thing. But that really is not what we do here.
That'll be the brand leading into the 23-24 season, as we're always right.
Yeah. Refusal to accept accountability. No, but I mean, in seriousness, though, this is valuable to force you to think about like where your thinking went wrong in the past, and hopefully that makes you a better evaluator going forward. We'll see. but again, this is going to be interesting. I am very excited to do this because I never remember what my reasoning was, or rarely do. Like if we're talking about over a year ago, that we're going to look at what we thought of each East team's offseason. So I'm curious to see how much our evaluations, with a year of data deviate from what we thought. So that'll be cool.
Are we ready to get into this? We're going to go by division and do the Eastern Conference and hopefully not spend too long on each team, but I think there will be some teams that require some thorough relitigation, yeah. I'm sure.
I'm not ready, but we're going to start anyway with the Atlanta Hawks. So as a refresher for both us and the listener, their main offseason moves last summer were the Dejounte Murray trade. So just briefly, Murray and Jock Landale in for Danilo Gallinari, who was subsequently waived. Charlotte's 23 first, which had some protections on it, top 16 through 24, top 14 and 25. Atlanta, or there must be San Antonio's 25 first rounder unprotected, swap rights in 26, and a 27 unprotected first from the Spurs. So Dejounte Murray in I'm sorry, I had it wrong. You got to jump in and correct me, Dan. I was trying to get Dejounte Murray and all the Spurs picks to the Hawks. Those Hawks picks go out.
Hey, I'm trying to make sure that afterwards we're able to hit that they traded Mo Harkless for Vic Krejci. So
you're down, you're out in the weeds. I'm fucking up who's trading picks for Dejounte Murray. AJ Griffin was the number 16 pick, and then the other one I wanted to hit was the Kevin Huerter trade to the Kings for Mo Harkless, Justin Holiday, and a 24 first with lotto protection. It eventually can turn into 26 second. Although did that convey? I can't even remember now. It must have conveyed because it was lottery protected, or that's in 24. Never mind. Not going to, has not conveyed yet. There was a $3.7 million traded player exception generated with this transaction, but mostly this was the Hawks shedding money to try to duck the tax, despite swearing up and down that that's not the kind of operation they run. Anything I missed there before we get to what we gave the Hawks last year?
No, just that they traded Mo Harkless for Vic Krejci, but that happened after our grades.
We both gave him a B-. And well, do you remember what your logic was on that? There were a couple points I remember kind of focusing on.
I remember that I think we were collectively higher on the Dejounte Murray trade than consensus. We were okay with the price that they paid. And I think now, even knowing last season how he didn't have the intended defensive impact, I'm still okay with the trade because of the extension they signed him to. I'm not okay with the Kevin Huerter trade because when you look at, yes, their offense under Quinn Snyder was able to be thermonuclear AF at points. But like when you look at their shot profile, they really could have used Kevin Huerter, even with Bogdan Bogdanovic still there. That's still not a trade that I love. And like having a Kings pick isn't sexy anymore. Like, okay, you have a lottery protected 2024 Kings pick. Congratulations. That's not really worth anything. So I think I would stick with my B-. I don't know where you ended up with it, but I might even like, do we lower it to a C+ just to continue to ding them? But again, you extended Dejounte Murray, I think, on a pretty team friendly contract.
Yeah, I think if I deviated, it would be like a marginal move up or down. I think I'll just stay with it too. It would be interesting. I think we both would be quite a bit lower on this if there were no extension, because that was at the time, that seemed highly improbable that the Hawks were going to be able to extend Murray and avoid him hitting free agency. So to get that done, I think at least keeps it at a B- for me. And I think that's fair to just kind of stick with it there. So, hey, good for us, by the way.
I would also say what helps is that the Dejounte Murray like process and then fit probably isn't as great. Like it was cleaner on offense, even though the minutes without Trey were a mess. What really might help them is, okay, let's say you want to regrade them lower for that. AJ Griffin at number 16 looks like maybe not a home run, but a triple, double triple hit. And so I think that helps them a ton too.
Also, last thing, it's difficult to evaluate the Hawks last year because they changed coaches midstream again. And I suspect that I'm picking the Hawks to win quite a few more games this year than last coming in. So I don't know. Do you credit them for hiring Quinn Snyder like 8 months or whatever it was after we gave these grades?
That's
I don't know.
Not off-season stuff though. Yeah. So why didn't they make that decision over the off-season? Why didn't they change their front office quicker?
Well, maybe we should ding them for that. The other thing
is maybe we probably should go lower just because they clearly. But like, can you ding them for decisions not made? Like, I'm more sort of just like, why did they just let DeLon Wright leave? Is something that I could grade them lower for. I'm sticking with a B- though, because I think the Dejounte Murray outcome was really great, and like the contract. And then I really like AJ Griffin, even if ultimately he's only trade fodder for them.
That's fine. We're going to change plenty of these, so we can start out with a we made no mistakes.
Speaking of a team that might warrant some changes, we move on to the Charlotte Hornets, and they drafted Mark Williams at number 15. They traded number 13, so Jalen Durant, to the Knicks for Denver's 2023 first rounder. It was lotto protected through 2025. That obviously did not matter. 3 2023 second rounders. So that's a transaction we have to revisit, I would think. But I think Mark Williams kind of helps offset it a little bit. Bryce McGowan's they got, that's whatever. They fired James Borrego, and then they thought they had Kenny Atkinson, but he backed out. So they signed Steve Clifford to a 3-year contract. He has a 2024-2025 team option. So this is the last guarantee year of his deal already. And then they signed Cody Martin to a 4-year, $31.6 million deal, the final year of which is non-guaranteed. He will never make more than $8.7 million. Notable exits: Miles Bridges, felony domestic violence, ended up pleading no contest, doesn't play for the team, signed a qualifying offer this summer. I think those are all the high notes. Did I forget anything here?
No, I'm just sitting here struggling, trying to unpack the Durant trade and what I think of it. That we should probably start with that, right? Like, I mean, there are so many things that were weird about this offseason. We both gave him a D+ across the board for both of us last year.
And I think the biggest reason for that is I do believe I'm higher on Mark Williams now than I was then. But the bigger thing was you traded a lottery pick for a first-round pick that was never going to be a lottery pick. You know what I mean? Like, that was just that felt like disastrous decision-making by the organization.
And again, struggling to remember, was the logic, we're fine with Williams at 15 and we think it's worth it to get this fake first because we're okay moving down for a center we like as much as Durant? I can't remember if that was the logic of it. Like, let's pick up some assets, middling as they may be, because we think Durant and Williams are similar. Was that part of it?
Yeah, I'm sure, but I thought Durant had just a better defensive ceiling when sort of looking at his mobility. I didn't trust Mark Williams' touch, but just and I don't know if this matters, but that pick turned into Nick Smith Jr. I don't know if that changes like the way that you would grade this at all. I think
not much.
Maybe there won't be a change. I'm still fine with the Cody Martin contract. I know he was injured last year. I think Steve Clifford is just sort of like, yeah, the optics of whiffing on Kenny Atkinson aren't great, but like they were a really good defense to close the season. They were like 6th or whatever in points allowed per possession after the trade deadline. So I think that was sort of fine. I'm not like, I might give them a D just because I really like Mark Williams. And so their calculation on Mark Williams was right, where maybe you're still higher on Jalen Duren, but he's at least in the same conversation. I still think that trade is inexplicable, though, is because, like, why would you trade a lottery pick for a first-round pick that will never become a lottery pick? Even I don't care how many, like, least favorable seconds were attached to it.
Right. I think I'm going to stay at a D+. I just like nothing. Like, what am I unless I'm like, well, the Cody Martin signing looks even better now, which it doesn't because he was just hurt. So I'm not going to change anything based on that. I'm not finding, other than Williams, I guess, although I'm not 100% sold on Williams. I think he's going to be a decent starter maybe. But I'm D+. Sounds good to me.
I'll actually stick with the D+ too, because you're right. Like, I can't just reward them for getting the Mark Williams pick right. Like, because I didn't demerit them, because the part of our conversation was not Mark Williams is going to suck and Jalen Duren's going to be great. We didn't know enough about we didn't have enough information on these players at that point. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the D+ too. That was not a banner offseason for them. I will say though, this side of the Kenny Atkinson fiasco, having Steve Clifford, I think looks like an even better sort of contingency, even if it was forced. Yeah. And that might be the only thing to like better. I'm still fine with the Cody Martin contract. That's still a very useful gap filler player when he's healthy.
All right, so that moves us in this division to the Miami Heat, unless I'm botching the alphabet, which we've been known to do. I'll just go through it here. Drafted Nikola Jovic at 27. Signed Caleb Martin to a 3-year, $20.4 million deal. Oh boy, this grade's going up. Signed Oladipo for 2 years, 18.2. Player option on the second of that. Signed Dwayne Dedman. Signed Marcus Garrett, Darius Days. A bunch of less significant signings. PJ Tucker out. What else did I miss? That was pretty much it.
This happened after the grading, but I think it matters. They did re-sign Udonis Haslem.
That was fait accompli, although not anymore. So I had this as a C-. You were at a B-. I think I've got to move it up just because of Caleb Martin. The question is how high, how much higher. So this is the first one we've deviated by a full letter grade on here, or deviated at all. Do you remember what you were most high on, or that differed from me? I certainly can't. I probably dinged him. I guarantee my criticism was based mostly on losing Tucker.
Yeah, and I'm sure mine was as well. I really liked the Caleb Martin contracts, and I also liked the Victor Oladipo and Dwayne Dedmon contracts, which just
Yeah.
proves that I don't know what the hell that I'm talking about. But in Oladipo's defense, like he got injured again, and so
Right.
it was just like, I notched it up to a B because the Caleb Martin contract is just one of the best in the NBA right now. But you still like, and you couldn't have kept the way it went because they only had non-bird rights on Tucker. You couldn't have kept both Caleb Martin and PJ Tucker. So I don't really know what to make of that.
I
There were
mean,
steps they could have taken to have done so, but what would have been like the nuclear route to go there?
well, and if you frame it that way, they kept the right guy. If it was one or the
Yeah.
other, keeping Martin, I think Martin mattered so much in that playoff run. I gotta go. You went up from B minus to a B. I gotta make a huge jump here. I think in hindsight, just on the strength of Martin, and Jovic maybe at 27. I don't think we've seen nearly enough to really say if that's as the kind of steal it looks like it may be. So there's, I guess, if we do a 2 years on revisit on this, which we definitely won't, there's room for this to get higher if Jovic really pops. I'm going, well, unless you want to. I don't think I can't remember what happened yesterday. 2 years is pushing it. I guess I gotta go. I'm gonna go. I can't go B plus because
I mean, you can.
I'll go all the way to B, which is a big jump from a C minus. So I'll join you in the B range there for the Heat.
I think for it to be higher, you really have to like. Were you just watching a lot of FIBA and have decided that Nikola Jovic is either going to push the Damian Lillard trade package over the top, or he's just going to be like the front court partner of the future for Bam Adebayo? Yeah. I don't know why else you would grade it, like, because B plus is just that's very close to an A. That's right. They really nailed it.
Can't get there yet.
You shouldn't get there at all. I don't know if there even is a pathway. Again, Jovic being a star, I suppose. We will now move on to the Orlando Magic, our next in the alphabet. They drafted Paolo Banchero at number 1. There was some debate there, so that matters. They drafted Caleb Houston at number 32, and he wound up playing a great deal for them. They signed Gary Harris to a 2-year, $26 million deal. They signed Mo Bamba to a 2-year, $20.6 million deal. They signed Bobo to a 2-year, $4.4 million deal. They signed Kevon Harris to a 2-way contract. He ended up playing for them. They lost Robin Lopez. He went to the Cavs. Am I missing anything there? Did anything happen after we graded them?
I think you got it all there.
That's dope. Our original grades there then were, I gave Orlando an A minus. You gave them a B plus. So we were already pretty high on their offseason. Did anything happen that would change it?
I mean, it certainly doesn't get worse for me because Banchero was pretty clearly this was going to be Jabari Smith Jr., who I think we both are still kind of excited about. But I think between him and Banchero, it's like, well, the Magic made the right pick there. And this isn't a case where this isn't a Wembanyama situation where you didn't even really make a pick. It just, the pick made itself. I think Banchero clearly was, one of more than, a handful of options that they could have realistically picked. And as I remember, it was like a little bit of a surprise that they picked him, right? Or at least they kept it pretty tight because there was some doubt, right up to the selection. Knowing us, I bet we also really liked the non-guarantees that they put on the second year of a lot of these deals. Gary Harris, Mo Bamba, and Bol Bol. I think I'm staying B plus. Maybe I might go. You know what? I'm going to go A minus because they stayed flexible. They didn't commit any bad money, and they made the right pick at number 1. So I'm going to go up to A minus from my B plus.
I went up to an A just because you made the right pick at number 1 when it wasn't, like, it was a question. Like, that was a real debate that was happening. And it's just clear. And we haven't seen Chet Holmgren play yet, of course, but just what Paolo Banchero can do on offense with the ball in his hands. I think Justin Shores, you made the right pick there. The Gary Harris deal ends up being a home run because they had sort of just, the 1-year language with the Mo Bamba. That doesn't matter that they just sort of traded him away. And I also like, getting Harris on the 2-way contract ends up playing a role for you. Caleb Houston, a nice little like chaos player for them, plays a role for them this past year. And like, those were guys that contributed to what was a defense, particularly Houston, that ended up being really good this past year. And so it wasn't a perfect offseason, but like for where they were in their development and not even knowing what Paolo Banchero was at the time, it seems like they were able to preserve their flexibility while getting better. And you have to commend them for that. And the big thing is just, you ended up with Paolo at number 1 when there was, to reiterate, just a real debate there as to who should go number 1.
That takes us to the Washington Wizards, last team of this division. They drafted Johnny Davis at number 10. They signed Bradley Beal to a 5-year, $251 million contract with a 15% trade kicker, a no trade clause, the only one of its kind in existence, and a player option, because why not? For his age 33, or no, they signed in the last year of that deal. Signed DeLon Wright, signed Anthony Gill. I guess Wright is clearly the more significant of those. 2 years, $16 million. Got Will Barton and Monte Morris for Ish Smith and KCP. Ooh. Signed Taj Gibson to a 1-year deal. I'm trying to see anything else. They lost Howell Neto and Thomas Bryant to free agency. This, Dan, earned from, I'm looking now, you gave them a D+, I gave them a D. I am moving mine without hesitation to a flat F. There are no F minuses unless you want to give them one, but
I just did.
You just did in the
getting an F
spreadsheet,
minus for me.
I'll join you at the F minus then. If we're willing to go down there, I'm willing to join you.
How many minuses? Like 3, 4?
The
5?
most, all the minuses. Although not 2, because then that's positive, right? If you
They don't even get a saving grace for signing Jordan Goodwin in September because they ended up just including him in the Bradley Beal trade. So it's just like you fucked up. Like this was we could talk about how do you grade them about the roads not traveled. This was something we talked about at the time. The contract was going to be a disaster, and it turned into a disaster probably sooner than a lot of us thought because Bradley Beal was still good, but you were put in a situation where he didn't just dictate where he went, but for how much he went for. And that's a real issue. You could have started over that offseason. And now you're at a point where you had to change the front office regime. And this is all stuff you could have understood. You didn't need any more information on the core of this roster. You didn't. And like, I know I think I probably gave them a D+ too, because I was like, oh, I kind of like the KCP trade for both sides, but Will Barton was done. Just cooked. Wizards fans felt like they ended up hating Monte Morris just because he claimed they didn't play with enough pace, but like he wasn't playing with enough pace. So it's just, this is an F-. You delayed a decision that should have been made years ago. And you just continue. And it wasn't even just, oh, we want to avoid the full-on rebuild. It's how can we make this as shitty as possible? Like, let's give Bradley Beal everything. Right. And then he comes out and says, I didn't really have any other options. And then you have Ted Leonsis, the owner, commending, like he probably dislocated his shoulder, patting himself on the back for giving out the no trade clause, only to then pivot away from it a year later. Just probably the worst. We haven't been through all this, but just without really, like, had to be the worst offseason in the NBA. In retrospect.
There won't be a work because you check all the boxes. Bad lottery pick, right? Horrible signing of your own guy, and then a really bad trade where you give up a guy who goes and starts and really matters for the title winner. Like, what is KCP worth at the deadline? Like, this is the problem. It's like he wouldn't have been this same player on the Wizards, but like, what's Caldwell Pope worth today? Like, it's definitely more than Will Barton and Monte Moore. Like, it's a joke. So yeah, and then you get an immediate, not immediate, but basically as quickly as possible, full regime change. Like you've hit every hallmark of you have royally just ruined your offseason. So I don't think we're going to get any worse off seasons than that to put a bow on this division and this team.
There could be. There's a team that I think might give them a run for their money based on how it played out, but we won't get to them yet because we're on to the Atlantic Division and the Boston Celtics. Their biggest move was they traded Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Malik Fitz, Nick Stauskas, Juwan Morgan, and a 2023 first rounder for Malcolm Brogdon, who ended up, he was in the running he won Sixth Man of the Year, right? Emmanuel quickly not win it. He won Sixth Man of the Year. They signed Danilo Gallinari to a 2-year, $13.3 million deal. He then tore his ACL and did not play for them. Signed Luke Cornett to a 2-year, $4.5 million deal. They signed Sam Hauser to a 3-year, $5.7 million deal, team option at the end. And they also, after we provided their grade, they signed Blake Griffin. I don't think there was any other notables that I'm missing there. Did you?
I'm scanning through real quick. Blake Griffin's the only one that. Did you say they re-signed Hauser?
Yes.
Yeah, that's on there. Yeah, no, you got it.
So we both gave them an A. Wow, we both gave them an A. Would you change that at all in retrospect?
I mean, the knock would be the Ime Udoka stuff, which I don't know how you
Oh,
factor
that happened, I'm assuming after, right?
It,
Because it's not even mentioned in our notes. That's a great
yeah,
point.
I think it had to have, but I don't know like what you do with that. Because it's not like I guess it's a transaction if you get rid of your coach. But it's not kind of the typical type of thing we would evaluate here. And I think mainly I'm sure we love the Gallo signing for, the mini MLE. And I'm sure we were both pretty on board with the Brogdon deal. And I think in both cases, certainly the Brogdon trade worked out. And the Gallo move was good until it wasn't. And that was sort of out of their control when he got hurt. So yeah, I think I'm not going to move off the A. I don't think.
I don't know how to
It
grapple
doesn't feel
with
as to give them that both of us gave them an A. We must have felt like this puts them over the top. Basically, I guess maybe it obviously it didn't. But like
I just don't know
gotta
how
move
to
it. We gotta move it down, I think.
right, because I also don't know how to. The Gallo injury is just, he's an injury prone player, but I like the mini MLE. Like, I liked that swing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about the Ime Udoka stuff, because did they hit, because I don't think Joe Mazzulla was necessarily the wrong guy to put in charge. It's just when you put him in charge, he tried to make material changes to a team that thought it had forged its identity.
Right.
And then there's some change there and they didn't have as much time to bring it together. And do you criticize them for sort of being too delicate with the Udoka decision, where he's suspended, we're not going to get rid of him until we absolutely know that we can get rid of him? And then how long did the investigation, the relationship take? Was the messaging coming out strong enough to make people understand what was going on behind the scenes? I honestly don't know how to grade that. I'm not saying they put the wrong guy in charge. I'm not even saying they could have made that decision sooner, but it does feel like they could have handled that situation better, where there was this, you left the team in lurch, I think, for too long. And I know there's probably you're a lawyer. There's probably legality issues by saying, well, we're going to get rid of Ime Udoka for this right now. And is there enough cause to do that? But you did keep your, not just a title contender, you were a title finalist the year before. You left, and the core identity of the team in lurch, the direction in lurch, I think, for too long.
I'm trying to the Gallo thing we can definitely say was out of their hands. The Udoka one is such a gray area because what kind of culture are you promoting, and how prepared were you for this? Should you have acted sooner? Did you have the ability to? I just don't know what to do with it. I'm going to go from an A to an A minus, just because I don't know. That's not significant, but I feel like I need to acknowledge yes, in some respects, this was a controllable outcome, I guess. And it's not as simple anymore as, they got Brogdon for, stuff they didn't ultimately need. And Gallo was a great signing. There's just to illustrate that this got a little messier than it seemed a year ago.
I'll go A minus as well. We're two on the same page right now. I think you could go lower if you decide, well, you look at what Brogdon was able to do, and then even what Gallo would have been if he was healthy, that did not inject nearly enough playmaking into their rotation for what they needed. So I think you could probably go to a B plus or something if you really wanted to.
Yeah. All right. That takes us to the Brooklyn Nets. Notable moves here: got Royce O'Neal from the Jazz as the Jazz began their fire sale. They for a 2023 first, which is the lesser of X, Y, and Z: Houston, Philadelphia, Brooklyn. Kessler Edwards had his team option decline. Then they signed him to a 2-year deal. He's on the Kings now, right? They dealt him midseason. Signed Nick Claxton to a 2-year, $17.3 million deal. Holy smokes. Signed TJ Warren to a vet minimum. Do you see my grade going up? Patty Mills opted out, re-signed $13.3 million for 2 years. Signed Edmund Sumner, 2 years, 4.2. Alondas Williams for a 2-way. Andre Drummond gone. Goran Dragic gone. LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin left. David Duke Jr. gone. Did I miss anything there?
No, I don't think he did. Nothing
they also
happened.
had the Kevin Durant trade demand, right? In the offseason, probably after we did this.
Right. And the whole Kyrie stuff. So because we both gave them initially a grade, this was the team I thought could give Washington a run for its money, because I gave them a D plus. You gave them a C minus. So we were both pretty low. They ended up being really good until like
Right.
the whole Kyrie Irving trade demand, Kevin Durant injury. And so I don't know how to grade that. I do think to go after Royce O'Neal and just give up a first round pick for Royce O'Neal when you have just sort of your roster, your direction is suspended in complete mystery, knowing what's happening with Kyrie and KD. There's something weird there. And then they fired Steve Nash. Like, what was it, like 7 games into the
I
season?
think the number in my head was 7 games. Yeah.
So why wasn't that decision made, especially when Kevin Durant gave you the ultimatum? I'm going to give them an F. I'm going to give them an F plus because the Nick Claxton contract is a home run. I just, given where the team ended up heading, like why, like you should have torn it down sooner, I guess, because you still got good value for the Kevin Durant trade. So holding on to him didn't do anything. Did you build up Kyrie's value by waiting? That could be the argument to be made. But like, how did you not make, like the Steve Nash decision should have been made in the offseason, hands down. And I also think just like, why did you let it get to a point if you were never going to extend Kyrie or like wanted to give him a longer term? Be like, why did you hold on to him then? And like, okay, you were really good. Like, where they had that stretch, they were like 21-2 or something, like whatever it was. Like, you still, Kevin Durant requested a trade in the end again. So he went from rescinding his trade request to requesting a trade again. It's just, but I guess they're set up. Like, you look at the assets they have. I don't know what to do here. Do I stick with the D plus? Like, I don't know what to do here.
I'm really struggling because I don't, because I had that exact same thought of, well, the position they're in now is like pretty good because they have more young talent than they used to. They've got Claxton on that Claxton deal is absurd. Like that's unbelievable. I can't.
Well, you can look at it one of two ways. Now they're already going to have to pay him again.
Well, yeah,
it was so short.
Sure. But I mean, just like dollar for talent and production, that's, I mean, an absolute steal. But yeah, like how do you evaluate the chaos that came really after we gave this grade? And then how do you weigh that against the Nets are in like a pretty good position because ultimately they did well in what they got for Durant and like did decently in what they got for Irving. I don't know how. I think probably I'm going to move it down because it's not like all the chaos that came roughly a month or a few weeks after this was like totally unforeseeable. But I also understand how they felt like we got to try to keep this together because if we have everybody here, we're a contender. So I'm just going to take it down to like a D, just a flat D. This is one of the hardest teams to evaluate because there are so many. Like, at what point do you ding them for not doing stuff? When should they have known they needed to blow it up? I don't know. There's like too many unknown variables here, but I'm moving down just because at least some of it, I think I'm penalizing them because it was pretty clear Nash was not the coach for this team. It was pretty clear that Irving was going to do something that Irving always does everywhere. So maybe get out from under this sooner was the play. I don't know. I don't feel good about this regrade, but I didn't feel good about the grade last year. So that stays consistent.
I'll stick with a D plus then. I think the Nash decision should have been made. And so you ding them for that. But some of their moves, we probably like the Nick Claxton deal, but that looks better. The Royce O'Neal deal ended up being fine. The real argument comes down to whether, if actually by not tearing it down when Kevin Durant requested a trade, did they actually help themselves? Because would they have gotten less for Kyrie Irving over the offseason than they did in the middle of the year? I think that's something that's fair to relitigate. So I'll stick with the D plus. Also, an addendum, they did not lose David Duke Jr. They did this offseason. He ended up coming back to them. That happened after our initial grading. I'll stick with a D plus. Like you, though, I don't feel great about it. Now we move on. Oh, man. Let me just
get ready.
Let me just get ready, mentally prepare for this. We are on to the New York Knicks. They traded number 11, which was Ousmane Dieng, to OKC for Denver's lotto protected pick in 2023, which did not stay with them. Detroit's 2023 first. It's protected with loosening protections through 2027. It gets down to top 9 protection then. And then Washington's 2023 first. That's lotto protected through 2024, top 10 in 25, top 8 in 26. They then acquired Jalen Duran, the number 13 pick from Charlotte, for that Denver 2023 lotto protected first and 3 second rounders. They then traded Jalen Duran, number 13, and Kemba Walker to Detroit for Milwaukee's 2025 first round pick, top 5 protection on that, I believe. traded Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, $6 million in cash, a 2023 second round pick, and a 2026 second round pick to the Pistons. Basically, that was just a straight salary dump. They then signed Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, $104 million deal. It started at $27.7 million, and it goes in decline. The final year is a player option, which will be his age 29 season. They signed Isaiah Hartenstein to a 2-year, $17 million deal. We both loved that. To frame that in totality, and I believe I had this right, they used the number 11 pick, 6 second rounders, 5 of which were basically real seconds. So we'll say 5 real seconds and $6 million in cash to offload 3 expiring deals, scoop up 3 conditional first rounders, and get Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein. They also signed Mitchell Robinson to a 4-year, $60 million deal. That is also on a declining scale. And they signed Jericho Sims to a 3-year, $5.7 million deal. And that is really the only other notables I have. Taj Gibson did leave. Is there anything else that I missed post-date?
No, that was it was exhaustive and exhausting Knicks offseason that I think have hit all the big elements of.
So our grades at the time, I gave them a C-, and you also gave them a C-. This is a terrible podcast. You were so on the same page. So I want to make it clear. The criticism we had of this team was not the Jalen Brunson contract, which we both agreed was fine to good. It now might be one of the best contracts in the league.
Right.
So we still missed on it. But it was the mode of operations that the Knicks went through to get Jalen Brunson and everything. Taking a step back now, though, and I'll just go first here because it's me. I'll just hijack this conversation.
No, I go ahead.
I love Ousmane Dieng. And I think that we are going to look back on this year and be like, wow, because he was injured last year, the Thunder just have Ousmane Dieng too? Like they have Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams and SGA and Josh Giddey floating around and Ousmane Dieng too? That's happening? With that said, the Knicks never would have taken Ousmane Dieng because that is not who the Knicks are. I will give them a slight demerit for that because I think this front office should think in those terms. Like sometimes it's, hey, let's swing on the high upside positionless, huge ash wing. And they've only ever really done that with like Kevin Knox. And that didn't turn out so well. And I don't think he was wildly inefficient that summer league. But I don't know how you criticize like the rest of their offseason in its totality because the Isaiah Hartenstein signing, even if you wanted them to use him differently, still looks pretty good. And Jalen Brunson looks fantastic. He contended for an All-NBA spot, probably should have been an All-Star if we go back and talk about that. I think what you could say is, did they really need to, like, all the steps they took to offload expiring contracts? It still feels a little rich, which is why I'm going to give them an A- rather than a flat A or an A+. But, like, this ended up being, like, even the Mitchell Robinson deal looks good to, like, not just fine, but good. So you could probably even talk me into an A if you want to, but I'm moving it up to an A- here.
So had you thrown it to me, I was going to throw it back to you with the question of, Dan, why is this not an A?
I'm a narcissist and I just seized control of the discussion anyway.
No. Because as I'm looking at it, I'm trying to think like, how do I avoid this being an A? Because obviously they were dead right on Brunson and they got him for way less than he would get. Like if he were a free agent right now, we'd be talking Van Vliet money for more years, probably.
Oh yeah.
So like, ridiculous value there, and I'm not as high on Dieng as you are. I just because like I don't feel like I know enough yet.
You're a hater. That's why.
I'm a hater. I hate him so much. I do think like we don't get to take the victory lap on the center signings because I know, at least for me, I was like the Robinson signing's terrible. The Hardenstein one is great. They offset each other. It turned out to really kind of be the opposite because Robinson just played really well and mattered in the playoffs and exceeded the value of that deal, and Hardenstein didn't have as great a year, although still for that low amount of money, pretty darn good backup center. I'm going to just go flat A. And what sold me on it is the way that you framed it out on the outline here. It's 11, some bullshit seconds that nobody cares about, 6 million to get off bad money, get 3 conditional firsts. I guess maybe we should be a little more like nuanced in talking about those conditional firsts that they got, like how valuable are they? Are they going to convey? What'll they be worth? But then to do that and get Brunson and Hardenstein basically with the money you cleared, like that's pretty darn good. So
here's the other thing too, and it's why I'm going to move it up to an A. Not Well, the other thing that was not in here was the RJ Barrett extension.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I don't really know how that looks. I'm still kind of indifferent to it. I believe in RJ, but like around 6 figures for RJ Barrett is going to be like right now that feels like an awful lot of money for a team that I don't think is built to allow him to improve to the degree that they would want. Like it's just with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, and then just still not really enough shooting. So I don't really know how to view that, which is part of the reason why I can't give them a perfect grade. But I could also give them an A because they didn't make the Donovan Mitchell trade.
Right.
And I think that ended up being the right decision because of where they were at. Now you could argue, look at how good Brunson was. As they made that trade, they could have been better. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. But I think for where they were at, the Cavs, given who they had, where they were headed, yes, you go all in on Donovan Mitchell. For the price that Cleveland paid, the Knicks should not have matched that. Now, the flip side to the flip side is, did the Knicks actively make that decision not to trade for Donovan Mitchell? Or is it really because Utah just decided whatever they're doing with RJ Barrett, like we're over this, we're going to move on. So I'm going to stick with the A-. I don't think it was a perfect offseason, and some of it, I don't know how deliberate. Everything, all the actual transactions, that was all deliberate. But the RJ Barrett extension, and then like the process of the Donovan Mitchell trade talks, and even just the salary dumps a little bit, it felt like shouldn't have cost so much. But you have one of the best contracts in the league now in Jalen Brunson. And that was not, even people who thought the deal was fine did not frame it in that way.
Yeah. You said process like 2 sentences ago. So let's talk about the Sixers. They are the next team alphabetically. This is a fascinating offseason in hindsight now. So traded the rights to number 23, which was David Roddy, and Danny Green to the Grizzlies for D'Anthony Melton for 2 years, $16 million left on his deal, which I'm sure we were just in love with at the time. Signed Daniel House to a 2-year, $8.4 million deal with a player option for 23-24. PJ Tucker, 3 years, 33. That's the full mid-level, got a player option for 24-25. James Harden opted out and signed a 2-year, $68.6 million deal, significantly below market to facilitate the aforementioned signings of House and Tucker. The Sixers were investigated for tampering and cap circumvention. They were fined for that. They were not fined, however, for promising James Harden a bigger deal were he to opt out this offseason, which I don't care what anybody says. I'm sure that's why he called Daryl Morey a liar. Doesn't have anything to do with anything else. But so I don't know how to evaluate that. Small time stuff. Signed Trevelyan Queen to a 2-year, $3.6 million deal. Michael Foster to an Exhibit 10, $2 million option they picked up to keep Shake Milton. DeAndre Jordan out. Paul Millsap also out. What else did I miss from the Sixers? We got to hit the big items, but there was more, I think.
Yeah, so they ended up signing Montrezl Harrell, which for some reason. And then the other one that's like kind of big, they waived not only Charles Bassey, but Isaiah Joe, who went on to have himself a season in OKC. And for a team that you need all the shooting you can get around Joel Embiid and James Harden, that was maybe he never would have cracked the rotation in Philly, but that's one of those where that's not great, Bob. That's not great, Daryl. That's just not great,
Bob. We gave the Sixers an A, both of us. Which, looking back, if you didn't know what happened over the last 13 months, great signings. PJ Tucker, Daniel House, awesome. D'Anthony Melton's going to be great. Harden at a discount, and who cares what happens after?
In the context of what happened throughout the season, I think the Daniel House contract ended up being just sort of, it's not going to hurt them, but it was just kind of he didn't work out for them.
Right.
PJ Tucker was so low volume on offense that it felt like it became damaging at times. But like, even knowing what's happening with the James Harden stuff now, the fact that they didn't get into him for a lot of money or a bunch of years is probably a good thing.
That is the most fascinating part about this, because like, I guess, I mean, but it also feels like we're rewarding Daryl Morey and the Sixers for being like, sure, we got you. And then like, he thinks we got him, like as they look out there, this guy, what a sucker. That I don't know what to do with that. I mean, we have to move the grade down, don't we? I mean, I just don't know how much.
Because also the steps that they took to tamper, and you end up with PJ Tucker, Daniel House, and D'Anthony Melton. D'Anthony Melton was good for them.
I love Melton.
You ended up with House, and it was just sort of like, okay, now we're kind of seeing the aging curve of PJ Tucker a little bit, and what does that look like? I would drop them too. And look, you have to factor in just so there was either a disconnect between James Harden and the franchise, or you flat out just lied.
Right.
And it's just
here's what's also tricky is you look at it a year, we're a year on now, and they're going to have to trade James Harden. They're not going to get very good value for him, but like it's not a situation where, and he's also on the hook for 4 more years at $200 million or whatever it is. Like that's a good thing, I think. Although like you could make the counter that, well, if there were more team control, a team would give up more to acquire him potentially. I don't know if that's actually true in Harden's case, because you might not want the back ends of those years or any of those years, given where he is in his career. And then I guess really, if you want to go full galaxy brain, you're looking at it now and it's like, even though he said it's not going to happen, the odds of Joel Embiid requesting a trade and leaving and basically making your franchise have to start over are higher now than they were a year ago, because of what you've done, because of the way you operated with Harden. All told, the Sixers are in a more precarious position now, and I think it has a lot to do with what they did last summer. So we got to move off the A for sure. I'm going to take this down to, I'll just go down a full letter grade to a B, because even looking at all these moves in hindsight, like individually, they kind of all still look pretty good. They just didn't work out quite that well. And the Sixers were a good team last year. So, I don't know. I can't move them down too much more than that.
I'm going to move him down to a B plus just because I don't like the Daniel House trade deal in retrospect. I don't know why you signed Montrezl Harrell, really, but just they were a really good team last year. And I think that you definitely need to diminish their grade because of what happened with Harden, but also it ended up kind of almost being the ideal scenario for them where they weren't, because he still was not great in the playoffs. It was like every third game or something. So, and the elimination game when they were after being up 3-2 on Boston, like that stuff, it matters in the sense of, okay, you did whatever you did by Harden, you might have done wrong by him, but it still worked out for you as a franchise. I just don't really know how to grade that. That brings us to our last team in the division. It is the Toronto Raptors. They re-signed Thaddeus Young to a 2-year, $16 million deal with only $1 million guaranteed for year 2. They signed Otto Porter Jr. away from the Golden State Warriors to a 2-year mini MLE deal, essentially. Well, it was less than the big MLE, I should say. They drafted Christian Coloco at number 33. They signed Chris Boucher to a 3-year, $35.3 million deal. That's really it, unless I'm missing anything like big that they didn't get. They lost Yuta Watanabe to the Nets is like the other big thing that they did. I don't think they had like Juan Hernangomez at one point. They had Justin Champagnie at one point. Did he even finish the season with them? But they had DJ Wilson at one point as well. So yeah, did I miss anything?
I think you hit the big ones. I think we're good.
So we both gave them, I say we both, like we have the same grade. I gave them a B plus. You gave them a B. In retrospect, Grant, what do you think of their offseason?
Well, I mean, we both, did we both give them Fs this offseason for
I gave them an F minus, and you called me a savage when I did
that. You're still a savage. I'm trying to think why we were high on, I guess like the Porter move looked good until he was hurt and basically did not contribute at all. Thaddeus Young seemed to make sense. Like, oh, certainly you can trade him for a bad first or something. Maybe that was the thinking. This has got to go down, I think, because now that we've got a better global picture of the team's lack of a direction, this is sort of the same thing. They didn't pick a move to demonstrably get better. Now, granted, the circumstances of the 23 offseason are different because of Van Vliet's free agency and Gary Trent's opt-in and all that stuff. I'm going to take this down from a B to, I'm going to just take it down to a C, just because it feels a full letter grade worse to me. Mainly on the thinking that this 22 offseason contributed to the just like nauseating stasis that the organization continues to exist in.
My question before you make it would be, what move of all the ones that they made, and you can go through the nitty gritty ones that we didn't name if you want to, like maybe you're just very high on like the few minutes that Juan Hernangomez played for them or something. What move looks better in
Ooh.
hindsight? What deal, what contract, does any of what they did last summer look better now?
Yeah, you'd have to stretch and say, well, the Chris Boucher one is okay. It doesn't look better. No, I don't think. I think that's the question. Do you have one that looks better? I don't think I see one.
Maybe, and I just don't have enough information. I'm like, maybe Christian Coloco, like picking him
Yeah,
up makes sense, but oh no, you felt the need to go give up a shit ton for Jakob Pertl
right.
anyway. So you bumped them down to, what'd you say?
I think I took him down to full letter grade to a C.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C minus here. I could convince you a D plus though, because I liked it at the time, but they really underestimated. Like, and I don't know. We talked about, maybe we were waiting how much Chris Boucher would shoot. Like, maybe we thought he'd shoot better than he did. Maybe we thought Otto Porter would really juice their spacing. But like, even looking back right now, it's how did we not criticize them more for not addressing their lack of half court spacing? Maybe we're really sipping the Scotty Barnes Kool-Aid
Yeah.
at that point. I don't know.
I wonder too, like how much of, I mean, certainly now in 23, we're dinging them for moves, like unmade moves from way before. Like, well, if you thought Van Vliet might just leave, you should have traded him. And if you think maybe that's going to happen now with Siakam and or Anunoby, you should have gotten value, like that kind of thing. I, I guess at the time, a year ago, we weren't kind of thinking along those same lines because all of what's happened to Toronto now was kind of foreseeable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but I think just in isolation, you know, we looked at, oh, Thad Young, that's fine. Otto Porter, that's fine. Just didn't work out so well there.
Do you want to take us on to the Central Division?
Yes, I gotta go find it here.
Want me to do it if you can't find it?
Yeah, go for it. I'll take the next one.
We begin with the storied Chicago Bulls. They drafted Dalen Terry at number 18. Tony Bradley picked up his player option. They signed Derrick Jones Jr. to a 2-year, $6.6 million deal. He opted out on the final year. They signed Andre Drummond to a 2-year, $6.6 million deal. He is still there. They signed Zach LaVine to a 5-year, $215.2 million deal. Player option in year 5. They had Goran Dragic on a 1-year vet minimum. They lost Troy Brown Jr., who went to the Lakers, and they did not bring back Matt Thomas or Tristan Thompson. I believe, based off when we did these, but I will look very quickly, that we hit everything, unless you're upset that they waived Javon Freeman Liberty. They had Kostas Antetokounmpo for a hot minute, but then waived him in October. I think we got all the biggest ones, though.
Yeah, I think you're good there.
So we gave them, we were pretty nice to the Bulls. B minus and a B.
Doesn't seem like us. What's the main thing? The LaVine deal is the main thing to focus on, right? Like, I guess
it's the only thing I think you can. So we could talk about the LaVine deal. I mean, talk about like whether you thought they needed to be more aggressive with the tools that they had, which I think would be a fair criticism. Was Dalen Terry the right pick? The answer there is just, I mean,
TBD.
Probably not. But like, the only way that I think you could really say, oh, we need to like drop them down to an F, is you thought they should have blown it up because the writing was on the wall with the Lonzo Ball injury, or were you maybe like, oh, they should have drafted, like, think about what Christian Brown would have looked like on this team who was drafted number 21, or even Walker Kessler at number 22, like instead of having Nikola Vucevic right there. So I really don't know how to regrade this team, because I think the Zach LaVine extension was actually smart. I know people are kind of down on him. We know what Zach LaVine is. That's actually not a bad thing. He hits a lot of off the dribble threes. He could probably stand to do a little bit more cutting. He's a really good shot creator. He's probably about an average passer for his position. I had greater hopes for him there entering this past season. So that's a good contract, I think. I don't like, nothing else about this offseason was very good or inspiring though, but was it, oh, let's bring them all the way down to a D type of uninspiring?
Yeah, I mean, my instincts for always knocking the Bulls for not blowing it up are hard to resist here, but I think it's more fair to be harsh on them for the 23 offseason, because this was the one where you didn't have to retain Vucevic. You have DeRozan on a short deal now, and you can trade him, and LaVine, maybe you can. Last year was a little different because they didn't really have as many outs, and I think they had more reason to believe, I guess, that running it back essentially, could produce, maybe we're the 4th or 5th best team in the East or something. It wasn't ridiculous for them to think that. It's more ridiculous to think that now, or at least it's worse overall planning to operate that way now. So I don't think I'm going to move this. I Or I haven't had him at a B. I think I'm going to leave it at a B. I don't feel like they need to be really dinged because if you ding them, it's because the only consequential thing they did was resign was keep Levine at a deal that we both think is at least like okay. So I can't really deviate too much from what I thought last year.
I want to dig them a little bit to say, like, why weren't they the team that drafted Christian Brown? But I can't do it. I'm going to stick with a B minus. The other thing here, too, is last season was not as convenient for them to blow it up in theory. Like, you still would have probably gotten really good value for DeMar DeRozan. I don't know who was pounding down the door to get Nikola Vucevic in the final year of his deal. This offseason, as you said, it's easier to be critical because Vooch was a free agent. You have DeMar DeRozan on an expiring contract. There weren't a lot of teams in the East looking to tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you could have, or there weren't a lot of teams in general looking to tear it down in the offseason. So you could have, I think, gotten good value for these players. Overall, though, like maybe you could like, should this have been like a C plus in the moment just because they didn't like, what did Derrick Jones Jr. really contribute for them? I think Andre Drummond had like a fine season. So, it would have been nice if they would address the guard spot more. They drafted a rookie who could have played, but like those are just sort of like common misses that other teams have as well. And because it's the Bulls, we might be inclined to shit on them a little bit more heavily.
Yeah. This is going to be a fascinating one.
Can we just say, though, that it's very in theme with the Bulls that we both just kept our grades the same for them because all the Bulls seem to do is like just kind of keep their stuff the same.
They stay the same. We stay the same. The Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a kind of a funny one because looking at when we did this, the first item is not what you think it should be based on their 22 offseason. It's drafted Ochai Agbaji at number 14. Also drafted Isaiah Mobley at 49, signed Andrew Nembhard to a 2-way, signed Robin Lopez to a 1-year vet minimum. Ricky Rubio, 3 years, $18.4 million. That was the mini MLE, signed Howell Neto to a 1-year vet minimum. A little bigger. Gave Darius Garland 5 years, 192.9, 30% max if he makes all NBA. Colin Sexton at the time was unsigned, and that's it, right? The Cavs didn't do anything else last offseason. Obviously, the Donovan Mitchell trade.
Should we? I have the details. Should we?
Yeah, give me the details.
So they trade Ochai Agbaji, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton in a sign and trade, a 2025 first round pick, a 2027 first round pick, and a 2029 first round pick, plus swaps in 26 and 28, I believe, for Donovan Mitchell. That is, I mean, and they had, I think that was really it. There was nothing else that they did noteworthy before the start of the season there. Yeah, no. So,
yeah. So it's interesting to note that you had them as a C and I had them as a B based on everything except Donovan Mitchell, right?
Yes.
So I guess
part of the whole thing was like, well, why is Colin Sexton unsigned right now from my end as well?
And I think I probably was, well, if anything, the Darius Garland contract, like, can we pay him more now? Would that be okay? Because
right,
we just give him more money? Because that looked, I think we both liked it at the time. But yeah, the Sexton thing was probably hurt. I guess we have to move up because of the Mitchell trade, right? Because they leveled up as a team. They got another year to take a shot at it, and the New York stuff has died down a little bit. Because if we were gonna move them down for the Mitchell trade, I guess the thought would have to be that this is a stupid, dangerous rental that doesn't raise the ceiling enough. And I don't know
why anyone would move them down. I guess you could say, well, look, they gave up Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen was not viewed as Lauri Markkanen at the time of the deal, and he wasn't becoming that.
Knock him for that? I mean,
was he ever becoming that in Cleveland?
I doubt it. Yeah,
the fact that he was able to play the 3 in Cleveland, which kind of unlocked some stuff for him to do in Utah, a benefit to the Cavs there. Could you say, what was the offer they were actually bidding against? Like when you're looking at the Knicks is easier to say, but even just like Colin Sexton wasn't viewed as favorably around the league. He was probably considered on his deal more of an asset than Lauri Markkanen at the time.
Ooh,
like on that sign and trade.
Yeah.
I think I would argue that even Agbaji is just like, he looks like a really good player, but was sort of rookie at the time. You can quibble over, they probably did give up a hair too much for Donovan. I think it's just fair to say that, where it's like, could they have gotten away with one less swap, or did the swaps need to be in there? But I think the only thing to question in retrospect is just sort of the Ricky Rubio deal, and I hope his mental health is okay. I want to make that clear. But how much value was he bringing to a roster that really needed shooting? They do still need some backup guard help. So I think the deal is ultimately still fine for them. And again, I hope his mental health is okay. We'll see if he comes back with the team. what is there to dislike? Actually, dislike. I'm gonna go A minus here, just because it's could they have figured out a way to where they had some like other wing options on this roster? But it's
Yeah.
also we're going through their offseason grades. They weren't viewed as like a real suitor for Donovan Mitchell at the time, so this wasn't baked in to their plan. They were definitely, we saw them tangentially mentioned a couple times, but they were not the team that you thought was going to come out of the woodwork and wind up acquiring him.
Yeah, I think if I'm starting from a B and you're starting lower than me and you're coming up that high, I have to go to an A, just a flat A, because like it's Cleveland and LeBron James is not there. So you're going to have to overpay a little bit to go get someone like Mitchell. So I can't like, knock him down to an A minus because maybe it costs a little too much. Yeah, I got to just go A. You got Donovan Mitchell. You elevated you moved into another tier that you just weren't in without him the year before. So I feel good about just going all the way up for them.
Let's move on to the Detroit Pistons, whose offseason we were not as kind to as we were this past offseason. I can tell you that. I'm not even looking at our grades right now, and I know we weren't as kind.
You'd be surprised. We're pretty close.
Oh, really? Okay, so drafted Jaden Ivey at number 5. Corey Joseph and Hamidou Diallo picked up their player options. They signed Marvin Bagley III to a 3-year, $37.5 fully guaranteed deal. They traded Jeremy Grant and number 46 to Portland for number 36, which turned into Gabriel Procida at the time. Milwaukee's 2025 first. That was top 4 protected. I said it was top 5 before, so I apologize. And a 2026 second round pick, most favorable of Portland or New Orleans. They acquired Jalen Durant for Kemba Walker and that Milwaukee 2025 first. They acquired Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, $6 million in cash from the Knicks, a 2023 second, which was their own, a 2026 second. It'll be their owner, Minnesota's. That was just essentially to take on the salary. They signed Kevin Knox to a 2-year, $6 million contract. They re-signed Rodney Magruder to a 1-year veteran minimum. And I believe that was the only, those are the only noteworthy things. That I miss anything there based off what happened. They ended up trading Saban Lee. They ended up trading Saban Lee, Kelly Olynyk to the Jazz for Bojan Bogdanovic. I can't believe I missed that one.
So that came later. That came later.
Yeah, and that was the last. Like they waived Kemba Walker, but we all know that at this point. So you gave them a B minus. I gave them a B minus, excuse me. You gave them a B plus. Again, this was all before the Bojan Bogdanovic trade. What are your thoughts now, like kind of stepping back and zooming out? This was
I wonder how high I would have gotten them if the Bogdanovic trade had happened when we did this. I guess I would have gone higher. Although I don't know, I could imagine myself saying, why are they doing this? Why are they adding a vet, to this young team? I think, man, I might move it.
Can I bring up an awkward question?
Please do.
Did you see enough from Jaden Ivey as the season wore on to say, like, this should have been a Shaedon Sharpe or a Dyson Daniels team, or even the Galaxy brain thing? Jalen Williams could be on this team right now.
Look who you're talking to. No, that is where I was going. Is I'm sure I was higher on Jaden Ivey a year ago than I am now. I don't know if that's fair, just because he's a rookie point guard on a bad team. Like he's kind of just set up to fail. I do have more questions about, is he going to be able to shoot it? Can he figure out what to do on defense? All that stuff. That it's cool to have those questions before a guy ever plays a game as a rookie. But then when you get through a year and you still have them, and some of them are more pronounced than they were, and then Shaedon Sharpe is just sitting there as like, oh yeah, this guy might have it. I think that pick looks a little worse. And I think the Bagley deal looks just as horrible now as it did then. I think but the Bogdanovic one isn't on here. I think I'm going to move down. I'm going to move it down to a B minus because I think the Ivy pick doesn't look as good to me, because I think the Bagley deal has been confirmed as bad as expected. They got a first for Jeremy Grant essentially, and a 36 and a couple seconds. Durant, I'm not sure about. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just down to a B. Maybe B minus is too far. Where are you at?
The Marvin Bagley deal was dog shit at the time. It's dog shit now. Inexplicable. I don't like it. I am higher on Jalen Durant now than I was before. And I would actually say I'm higher on Jaden Ivey now.
Really? What's the basis for that? Why do you like Ivy better now?
There's just way more feel there than I thought when you're looking at like the point guardum of what he can do. And so like there are going to be questions about what's his efficiency going to look like from the in-between range. from three. I think that's all fair. When you watch him and the decisions that he can make with his live dribble, sometimes after he's leaving his feet, I don't know if this is, I will say, I don't know if this is the best team for him because of now having not just Cade Cunningham, but Ashar Thompson there, but the actual player. And this is why I can't bring them all the way up to an A. I'm going to go to an A minus. I'm going to go to a B plus for their offseason. I hate that Bagley deal, but I'm going to go to a B plus for the offseason. The Bojan Bogdanovic deal was a home run for them.
Yeah.
And could end up being mission critical when you're talking about streamlining the development of these guys together. And I think the Jaden Ivey pick, most likely, the only player I will say right now, there are three players that there's really only two, because I'm super high on Ousmane Dieng. I'm not going to throw him in this. But like the players who you can look back and say, oh, maybe they should have taken Shaedon Sharpe, or should they have taken Dyson Daniels or Jalen Williams, excuse me. And Jalen Williams just wasn't in the conversation for that. And so I love Shaedon Sharpe, but Jaden Ivey is going to be the better passer. I don't know what he is already the better passer, excuse me. I don't know what he's going to look like on defense. So I'm going to bump them up to a B plus. I could even be talked into an A minus. I just don't, I think they extracted pretty good value out of the Knicks for taking on those salaries. I think they got good value for Jeremy Grant, just looking at the point he was at in his contract. Maybe you think they should have gotten a little more. So I'm going to go B plus here.
Let's see. Well, now you made a good case. I feel like it's weird that because I think
down and I went up.
That's really, so much of my grade was based on liking Ivy, and now I'm left.
But if it's to be fair, in the interest of fairness, if you're lower on Jaden Ivey now, like that would explain it. That's not really.
But the Bogdanovic deal I think is a plus, and so does that counteract it? And should I just stay where I'm at? I'll just go to a B. So that way we're not, in lockstep as a B plus. Because if I stayed put, I'd be at a B plus.
Are you ready to take us to the next team?
Sure. That is the Indiana Pacers. You may recall that for a hot second, they had DeAndre Ayton signed to a 4-year, $133 million offer sheet, which Phoenix matched in a hot second, 2 hot seconds. Benedict Mathurin, drafted at number 6, came out like gangbusters and cooled off quite a bit. Drafted Andrew Nembhard at 31. Holy cow. We like that. 4 years, $8.6 million for him. Acquired Kendall Brown from Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. Insignificant. Picked up O'Shea Brissett's team option. Signed Jalen Smith. Man, I was high on Jalen Smith to a 3-year, $15.1 million contract, player option in 24-25. Also guaranteed him a starting spot. That's fun. God. And then they were on the other end of the Brogdon trade we mentioned for the Celtics, acquiring Daniel Tice. Had 2 years left on the deal at the time. Aaron Nesmith, Malik Fitz, who was waived. Nick Stauskas waived. Juwan Morgan waived, and got Boston's 23 first with top 12 protection. You're better at this than I am. I don't know who that turned into. Pick wise,
you're talking about the pick from
the Celtics.
That turned into, is that Ben Shepherd? I think that turned into.
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's Ben Shepherd, but I'll double check. It is Ben Shepherd, number 26.
Amazing. Glad I threw that to you. Let's see. Lost TJ Warren, who signed with Brooklyn. I think that's all I got here.
They signed James Johnson after we did it, if you care.
Okay. And just for reference, you had Indy's 2022 offseason as a C, and I had it as a C plus. Man, I'm trying to think of reasons to deviate here again.
I still think the DeAndre Ayton offer sheet was too kind for an offer sheet. Like they should have made it harder.
Matchable
for Phoenix to match, but they also kind of dodged a bullet there.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Like I don't know how to evaluate that. Cause
Phoenix was matching no matter what, which is why I think they probably still should have been like, hey,
yeah. I mean that, and then the weird offer sheet trend really spiked this offseason, and was not really in vogue last offseason. So yeah, I think Mathurin at 6 is probably, I mean, Sharp is right there again. That's tough, but I mean, Mathurin started out great and looks like he's going to at least be a really good, high scoring 6-man. So that's not a bad floor for number 6. Unless you're just unless you knew, and nobody can claim this, that Shaedon Sharpe was just going to be, have, a top 3 upside from that draft class. Maybe. What
if we knew that Jeremy Sohan was going to have cool hair and incredibly high NBA ceiling though?
Forgot about Sohan was there too. I'm kind of you're going to need to talk me up or down here, because I think I'm inclined to stick with my C plus. Like good off season, above average, didn't blow me away. I wonder if are you coming up though?
Yeah, I'm going to come up to a C plus just because I think the Andrew Nembhard pick was a home run. We'll see if that is like devalued at all because now they have Bruce Brown there and Benedict Matherin's going to start. Buddy Hield's there. Does his role get pulled? TJ McConnell still floating around here. I do wonder if like they could have gotten better value for Malcolm Brogdon, but his injury history, like there was a trade that was just scuttled because of like his injury report. So I'm thinking I don't know enough about Ben Shepherd to care one way or the other, but you ended up with a number 26 pick. I think that's probably fine given what the league-wide valuation of him was. It was like maybe a slightly above average. I don't know. I'm not as high on Benedict Mathurin. I don't think that means he was the wrong pick. He might be the right pick. And again, you can't be like, well, they could have had Jalen Williams would have been perfect. Jalen Williams wasn't in the conversation like at that point. So and Jeremy Sohan, could you have made that case? Dyson Daniels, sure. I don't know. The DeAndre Ayton contract, I appreciate their aggression. I think they should have been more aggressive, but we already talked about, did they sort of get lucky that Phoenix matched there? It was an average to slightly above average offseason, if that, to me. And look, I think there's a world where you could say, no, like I really believe that like this should have been a Shaedon Sharpe team, or this should have been a Dyson Daniels team. This should have been a Jeremy Sohan team. And especially given their void on the wings at the time, I think you could absolutely make that case. Why are we had Halliburton. Why was Mathurin the pick here? So I think that's a conversation to actually be had, but Mathurin's really good. And if you think he's going to, I don't know what he's going to be on defense, but if you just think the efficiency, I'm just convinced is going to be fine when you're looking at some of the types of shots he's taking. And if you're convinced that he's going to become a better passer, then that's going to end up being like, he might just be better than Shaedon Sharpe, Dyson Daniels, or Jeremy Sohan anyway. And so it's the right pick.
Yeah. All right. So you're moving up to a C plus with me there.
Basically because of Andrew Nembhard, who I'm just smitten with. Like
that Nembhard.
Number 31. Come on. That's really good value for him. Do you want me to take us to the Milwaukee Bucks?
I would love it.
So the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm looking at the wrong document here, wondering why they're not there. They drafted Marjon Beauchamp at number 24. Pat Connaughton picked up his player option and then extended on a 3-year, $28.3 million deal. They re-signed Javon Carter to a 2-year, $4.3 million deal. He opted out on the second year. They re-signed Wesley Matthews 1 year at the vet minimum, signed Joe Ingles to a 1-year deal at the mini MLE. They signed Bobby Portis to a 4-year, $48.6 million deal, player option at the end, signed Serge Ibaka to a 1-year deal at the vets minimum. And they brought back Jordan Nwora, and he was eventually traded, but they did bring him back. Did I miss anything after this happened?
I think you're good there. Yeah, you re-signed Portis. Yeah, I think we got all the significant stuff.
Because they had Thanasis was already under contract, right? They didn't need to re-sign him.
Yeah, they re-signed him this past offseason.
So we hit everything that was important, and I gave them first time around a B. You gave them a C minus. We differentiated here a good amount.
That's a big one. I think as I'm going through trying to remember my thought process, I can imagine myself saying, one, missing that Javon Carter was going to be as good as he was, but thinking, you had this big issue with your fifth starter / closer for a team that's trying to win a title. And your answer was, let's bring in Joe Ingles, who's going to miss a chunk of the season. And then, yeah, this is definitely what I thought. He's not someone I'm just like listening to echoes of my own dumb thoughts in my brain. I'm sure that I thought Ingles, and I generally like Ingles, but coming off the ACL, being someone that you can run some pick and rolls with him. He's a good shooter. I didn't see him being good enough defensively and with the injury and the age to like, this is our guy. This is the guy that's going to be out there with Giannis and Drew and Chris Middleton and Lopez in the games that matter, which will be in the finals. Cause I think I probably also picked the Bucks to at least make the finals or win the title. And I didn't love going into a season using the mini MLE on Ingles and then having Wes Matthews kind of be your fallback there and banking on Connaughton maybe being good enough to handle that role. Probably didn't like the Bobby Portis deal either. But C minus seems harsh because this is without looking back at, well, who were their alternatives to Joe Ingles? I don't know. Well, let me ask you before I go, you're at a B, that's pretty high. Are you inclined to move that one way or the other? I can't imagine you're moving it up.
No, I think, look, Bobby Portis, I think has improved incrementally as a switch defender over the past couple of years, which I think makes his contract look a little bit better. But the mini MLE thing with Joe Ingles, I think that was the move that I fell in love with. Then it gave me pause. Who else were they going to get with that money in
I can't
retrospect now.
remember.
And he ended up being fine for them. The Wes Matthews signing probably ended up being more important than even we expected at the time for them. I don't know what aged poorly here. Maybe the Pat Connaughton extension a little bit. We don't have a ton of knowledge on Marjon Beauchamp, but he really showed flashes as just someone who knows where to be when he's getting out in transition and who can hold up defensively for it was only certain possessions. I don't know, does that make him the right pick at number 24? Did you want Nikola Jovic? Did you want Peyton Watson, Patrick Baldwin Jr.? I mean, like Blake Wesley from the Spurs, who's a speed demon, but he's not too efficient. So they probably made the right pick at number 24, unless what this team actually could really use, who they could really use, excuse me. They could probably really use Andrew Nembhard. I'm not gonna lie. So what did they miss on last offseason? I might be inclined to I might bring this up to a B+. Like they missed on Serge Ibaka, but it's a minimum, and he wasn't happy there.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this up to a B+. It's just, I think if you want to criticize them, should they have made the Mike Budenholzer decision then? But why would you have? Like, you were coming off, like, that was the one, you didn't win a title that past season, but you won it the previous season. Like, what else were you supposed to do here? Like, you have to believe that the Pat Connaughton or Bobby Portis deals are a disaster. And I just don't think they are, because they need salary matching fodder for trades. Just that's as a baseline. I'm not even talking about their value on the court. Or could they have done better with the mini MLE than Joe Ingles?
Yeah, I think I don't think I'm going to leave it as a C-. And the thinking is just that the standard is really high when you're a team in the Bucks sphere where you're trying to win a title and that's it. And I guess again, I wish I could remember all that I thought at the time, but just thinking you've got a clear need, which is exacerbated on the wing because Chris Middleton's going to miss a bunch of time to start the year and may not be healthy until the very end, if at all. And it'd be a little bit like if the Cavs this past offseason had just not gone and found Max Strus and had just run it back essentially with, the collection of wings that were not good enough to complement their other 4 good starters. So I'm going to stay where I'm at as a C-. Because I just, in hindsight, it's not like looking back at any of these, it's like, oh man, that really worked out way better than I thought it did. If anything, all of them, other than Carter, the rest of the moves they made, were what I thought they would be or turned out worse, I would say.
So I'm going to ratchet them up to a B+, just because I think, look, you can talk about the lack of athleticism around Giannis still. Again, what were they supposed to do with the tools right available to them? I will quick fire this, just going alphabetically through all the teams in the East. The Atlanta Hawks, we both gave them a B-. We stuck with B- for them. The Boston Celtics, we both gave them A's. Both of us dropped them down to A-. The Brooklyn Nets, I gave them a D+ initially. You gave them a C-. I stuck with a D+. You went down to a D. The Charlotte Hornets, we both gave them D+. We stuck with those D+. The Chicago Bulls, I gave them a B-. You gave them a B. We both stayed the same. I have a B-. You have a B. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I gave a C. You gave a B. It was pre-Donovan Mitchell trade. I bumped them up to an A-. You bumped them up to an A. The Detroit Pistons, I had as a B-. You had as a B+. This was pre-Bojan Bogdanovic trade. I bumped them up to a B+. You dropped them down to a B. That was a funny one. The Indiana Pacers, I gave them a C. You gave them a C+. I bumped them up to a C+. Did you drop them down to a C? Because that's what I have listed.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
The Miami Heat, I gave them a B-. You gave them a C-. We both bumped them up to a B. The Milwaukee Bucks, I gave a B. You gave a C-. I bumped them up to a B+. You gave them a C- again. The New York Knicks, we both gave them C-. I gave them an A-. You gave them an A. Kudos to you. The Orlando Magic, I gave them an A-. You gave them a B+. I bumped it up to an A. You bumped yours up to an A-. The Philadelphia 76ers received A's from the both of us. I dropped them down to a B+. You dropped them down to a B. The Toronto Raptors, I gave them a B+. You gave them a B. I dropped them down to a C-. You dropped them down to a C. The Washington Wizards, I gave them a D+. You gave them a D. We both gave them F times infinity minuses.
That's the only one I feel sure about, by the way.
We will get to the West eventually, or depending on when I publish the East, we will absolutely The West might be out as you're listening to this. Who knows? Very quickly though, Grant, are you ready for the debut of our new segment?
Yes. So ready, Dan.
It is called, drumroll please, Garbage Time, where we're just going to go through some quick fire questions. I have a couple this time. I don't know if you have any. They're quizzes. They're would you rathers. They're factor caps. And I'm saying that because I have a factor cap for Grant. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
For the first one. This one, it's going to be a quiz, and I'm excited about it. Which NBA player has more career 40-point games? Allen Iverson or LeBron James?
It's got to be LeBron.
It's Allen Iverson, 79-74.
Unbelievable.
Stephen Curry or Damian Lillard?
Dame.
It's Stephen Curry. Wow.
0 for 2.
Wow, Grant.
Now, see, I want to tell you what happened there. See, I overthought the first one, and so then I double overthought the second one because it's like, if he's asking me, it's got to be the... Anyway, so this is me blowing it. Go ahead.
Kevin Durant or Oscar Robinson?
Come on. First of all, it's Oscar Robertson. Do I get credit for at least knowing that?
You knew it. Yeah, 77-65. I'll give you credit for that one. Giannis Antetokounmpo or Shaquille O'Neal?
Oh, golly. This
I'd
pause is terrible.
You literally just said golly. I just want that.
Terrible. I know. This is where you've got, I'm on tilt right now because it better be Shaq.
It is Shaq, 49-41. Dwayne Wade or Kyrie Irving?
I'm going to say Wade.
Yes, 34-31. Devin Booker or Jason Tatum? How on brand is this?
Ooh, can we just go with 70-point games? That's easier. I'm going to take Tatum.
It's Devin Booker, 25-22.
Oh, it's close.
Carmelo Anthony or Joel Embiid?
Ooh. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to say Melo just because he's probably played like 12 times as many games as Embiid career-wise.
Right, but Joel Embiid has 39 40-point games. Melo has 36. Nikola Jokic or Klay Thompson?
Ooh. I'm going to say Jokic.
It is Klay Thompson, 18-17.
These are so close. How am I going to know these?
Okay, this one's great. Julius Irving or Julius Randle?
Do ABA games count? Is that factored in, or is this NBA only?
It's NBA only.
All right. Well, I'm going to say Julius Randle just because it seems impossible.
10-9. Yeah, Julius Randle. Finally, Paul George or Zach LaVine?
I'm going to go with LaVine.
It's Paul George. You were wrong. 21-20.
What's my hit rate there? That's not good.
Well, the counter will show it when I actually publish like the shorts video of it. But that was it. Wow. You must. So let's make you feel better about yourself.
Okay.
Would you rather, Grant, take an elbow from Prime Shaq or take a charge in transition from Zion Williamson?
I think I'm going to take the charge from Zion. The elbow from Prime Shaq, I feel like you would just be in surgery for a significant amount of time. I'm not comfortable with that.
NBA factor cap. Desmond Bane will finish his career with more all-star appearances than Zach LaVine does.
Oh, do I get to ask you how many all-star games Zach LaVine has made?
He has made 2.
I'm going to say that is fact. I think Desmond Bane will make at least 3.
That's impressive because the West is so tough. I don't really know where I land on that, so I'm just going to let you stand alone there. That is all I have for you this time because we were doing so much today. Did you have any?
Unfortunately, I don't. So you're probably going to have to edit this out.
Do you want to take us out of here?
Sure. Sorry, man. Everybody, thank you for listening to the first of what will be a couple of previews here. Our regrades. That's what we should call it because that was fun. And if you have not already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, followed, all of the various things you can do to support the podcast, please do all of that stuff. Tell your friends about it. Tell your enemies about it. Check out our merch, the link to which is in the podcast description and I think the YouTube description. Join our Discord where certainly as the season gets going, that will be much more active in there. Still getting lots of good questions, lots of good topics of discussion in there. Trying to think what else I missed.
You could submit garbage time topics if you would like. Yeah. Grant and I don't have to be the only ones coming up with this. I'll start a garbage time room in there. So if you want us to cover anything in garbage time, let us know.
That's probably the place to do it. You can definitely tweet at us at HardwoodKnocks. We are also at HardwoodKnocks on TikTok, Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. Leave garbage time suggestions in the YouTube comments, wherever, but Discord would be good. I think that covers everything. Thanks again. And we close, as always, with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.